This is our 14th class on public administration. In this class, we will discuss about Finance Commission. Finance Commission is a constitutional entity. Article 280 of our Constitution provides for the creation of this Finance Commission. This commission advises central government on the issue of distribution of net income accrued from taxes. Thus, since it has its origin directly from our Constitution, thus it is a constitutional entity. Simultaneously, it renders advices to central government. Thus, it is an advisory body. Thirdly, it advises on the issue of distribution of finance between center and state. Thus, it is a financial entity. Now, summing up these three together, we can say that Finance Commission is a constitutional and advisory entity on the issue of distribution of finance between center and state. Now, why this Finance Commission is needed in India? Why it is needed? Is it needed in all the countries? Means such type of commissions are needed in each and every country? No, it's not like that. Since India is a federation, and in federation, governments are at two levels. One government is at central level and other governments are in provinces. Since the governments are at two levels, to smoothen the financial relation and to ensure the proper distribution of taxes, there is a need of such organization in federation like India. And that is why this constitutional, that is why our Constitution itself provides for the creation of such commission which would regulate the financial relation. I think I should say which would advise the government to smoothen the financial relation between center and state. Now, we should go some more deep. If we see our Constitution, there are 22 parts and 12 schedules. Means our Constitution is divided into 22 parts and 12 schedules. Now, in part 11 of our Constitution, which extends from Article 245 to 263, the legislative and administrative relation of center and state finds mention. Means this part 11 deals with the legislative and administrative relation of center and state. In this portion, there is Article 246. It talks about the number of subjects on which center will formulate legislation and will do administration. Similarly, it also talks about the number of subjects on which a state will formulate legislation and will do administration. Now, this Article 246 finds elaboration in Schedule 7 of our Constitution. Schedule 7 contains 3 lists. One is central list, there are 100 subjects in this list. Second is state list, wherein there are 61 subjects. And thirdly, there is concurrent list, wherein 52 subjects are mentioned. Now see, this Schedule 7 is an elaboration of Article 256. Article 256 talks about the numbering of subjects on which center and state will legislate and do administration. So it was not possible to mention all the subjects, all the items here itself. That is why the Schedule 7 was created, and Schedule 7 gives elaboration to this Article 256. In this Schedule 7, there are three lists. One is the central list, second is the state list, and third is the concurrent list. Now, in central list, there are 100 subjects. As you see the name, it is very much clear that all the items mentioned in central list, they on which the central government will form legislation and will do administration. Similarly, there are 61 items mentioned in state list. On these subjects, states are authorized to legislate and do administration. And there are 52 subjects find mention in concurrent list. On these subjects, center and state both are authorized to form legislation and administer. If there is contradiction between the central legislation and state legislation on any subject of the concurrent list, the central legislation will be dominative one, or will be regarded to be correct. Now, see, center legislates and administers on 100 subjects. States legislate and administer on 61 subjects. So, the authority to collect taxes relating to these items are respectively there with center and state. On all the 100 subjects over which central government is authorized to legislate and administer, all taxes relating to these subjects are the part of central government. Secondly, all taxes which are relating to these 61 items mentioned in state list, these are the source of income of the states. Now, see here, how many items are there in central list? There are 100 items. And how many items are there in state list? There are 61 items. So, number wise, if you see, there are more number of subjects with center and there are less number of subjects with states. Similarly, the number of taxes now see, the number of taxes in the hand of central government are more than the number of taxes in the hand of state government. Also, when you compare about their richness, the taxes which are in the hand of central government, they are richer than those of state list. When you analyze the income of central government from these taxes are almost double to the income of all states from their taxation. Thus, the income of central government from taxes are much more than the income of all states combined together. In this case, there is need to distribute this income among the states. Also, our Supreme Court has numerously said, while announcing judgment in different cases, it said that the income accrued from central taxes are not only for the central government, but also that should be distributed among the states. Thus, there is need for the distribution of these taxes between central and states. And that is why there is need of such constitutional entity which would advise on this issue. Again, why center was made so dominant? Why center was made so strong? If you analyze the historical status of our country, you will find no at any time all the part of this country was under single political power. Secondly, when India got free, at that time also there was many diverging forces and which were against this federation. Thirdly, all states of our country are not equally rich in natural resources and they need more assistance. These were some of the reasons why our constitutional makers decided to create a stronger and dominant central government than states. Now, after this, we need to analyze the financial relation between center and states. Now see, center-state financial relation. Part 12 of our constitution deals with center-state financial relation. This portion extends from Article 264 to 300A. Now see, the center-state financial relation is much more complex than that of center-state legislative and administrative relation. There are different arrangements for the distribution of taxes. There are different arrangements for the distribution of finances between center and state. Now, see, the Article 268 says that taxes will be imposed by central government, but that will be collected and appropriated by the states. Means the central government will only impose the tax, and that tax will be collected and appropriated by states. These taxes are stamp duty and excise on medicinal and toilet preparation. Again, remember, in Article 268, two types of taxes are mentioned. One is stamp duty and second is excise duty on medicinal and toilet preparation. And these two taxes are imposed, that is levied by the central government, but it is collected and utilized by the states. So, central government find nothing from these two taxes. Coming to Article 269, in Article 269 means Article 269 talks about the taxes on interstate trade of goods. There are certain goods which are transported from one state to another state for its sale. Now, this Article 269 talks about the tax on interstate transfer of goods. Now, it says that this tax will be imposed and collected by the central government, but it will be handed over to the state wherein it is collected. Again listen, this deals with tax on interstate trade of goods. This deals with interstate trade of goods, and this tax is levied and collected by central government, and then it is handed over to the states from which it is collected. From this tax also central government finds no income. Now coming to Article 270. Article 270 says that barring leaving the taxes mentioned in 268 and 269, rest other taxes of the central government will be levied and collected by center, but its net income will be distributed between center and state. Again, pay attention. I have already said you that center-state financial relation is much more complex than that of legislative and administrative relation, and there are many types of relation. And we are discussing here primarily three types of that relation. The first, Article 268, it deals with stamp duty and excise on medicinal and toilet preparations, and it says that these taxes will be imposed by center, but it will be collected and utilized by the states. So no income comes to center from these taxes. Secondly, Article 269 talks about the taxes on interstate trade of goods. In this case, this article says that this tax will be levied and collected by center, but it will be handed over to the states from where it is collected. Now, from this also center finds no income. Now, the third type of relation has been dealt in Article 270. Article 270 says that barring taxes mentioned in 268 and 269, rest all other taxes of central government will be levied and collected by center, and the net income from it will be distributed between center and states. Thus, Article 270 necessitates the formation of an entity which would advise the central government, which would advise the basis according to which the net income accrued under this article would be distributed between center and state. Again listen this Article 270. Article 270 says that barring all those taxes which are mentioned in Article 268 and 269, rest all other taxes of central government will be levied by center and collected by state, and the net income from these taxes will be distributed between center and state. And this article necessitates the creation of such an organization which would advise our central government, the basis according to which those income can be distributed between center and state. So this is the main article. This is Article 270, which has necessitated the creation of a finance commission, and our constitution Article 280 ultimately provided for the creation of such commission. Formation and structure of Finance Commission. Article 280 of our Constitution authorizes our President to create this commission. The President appoints the chairman and members of this commission. Now, it also says that this commission will be created at an interval of 5 years, and if the situation necessitates, the President can appoint earlier also. But till now, there were 15 finance commissions which were appointed, and those all were appointed at the interval of 5 years. Now, this article also says that there will be 5 members in the commission, but this article means our constitution is silent on the issue of eligibility criteria of these members. What would be the eligibility of these members and chairman? Constitution says nothing. Now, on this issue, Constitution has authorized Parliament to formulate a legislation, and through legislation decide the eligibility criteria. Then Parliament passed a Finance Commission Act in 1951, and thereby it decided the eligibility criteria of its chairman and members. According to this act, the chairman should be from administrative background. The chairman should be a person who has long experience of public affairs and administration, means who had been working for long time in public administration. Second, the first member. The qualification of first member is that he should be either a judge of High Court, or he should have the eligibility criteria necessary for the appointment as judge of a High Court. Means either he should be a judge of High Court, or if not, then he must have the eligibility criteria to be appointed on the post of judge of a High Court. Now, the third member, the eligibility of third member, he should be an expert and a specialist in finance and administration. Means he should have a specialist knowledge of finance and administration. The qualification for the fourth member is he should be expert and a specialist in sorry, let me correct. The qualification for the third member is he should be expert and specialist in finance and account. Means he should have a deep knowledge of finance and account. He should be an specialist in the field of finance and account. Similarly, the eligibility criteria for the fourth member is that he should be expert and specialist in the field of finance and administration. And lastly, the eligibility criteria for the fifth member is that he should be expert and specialized knowledge in economics. Thus, there are 5 members and Parliament has decided through this act the eligibility criteria or the qualification of these 5 members. Now, how they function? What is the process of its functioning? How it collects information? See, now look at the function and process of working. See, first we will discuss the functions of this commission. First of all, it advises central government how to distribute the net income accrued from taxes between center and state. Means how much portion of that net income will be kept with the central government and how much would be distributed among how much would be allocated for the states. So firstly, it advises our central government on the issue that how much of the net income from taxes would be kept for the central government and how much would be allocated for the distribution among the states. Now, thereafter, it advises on the issue that the portion of income which is kept, which is allotted for the distribution among states, in which ratio, in which proportion it would be distributed among the states. What would be the criterion for this decision? How much of the income should be given to which state and what should be the criteria for this decision? Means what should be the criteria to decide that which state should be given what proportion of money? Then secondly, there is not only the distribution of net income between center and state, but also in many cases central government provides grants, financial grants to economically weaker states. You must have heard about type A state, type B state, type C state. What does it indicate? It indicates the financial position of different states. You will find the bordering states, they are kept under category A states. They need more financial aid and assistance from the central government. So, in addition to the distribution of net income between center and state, the central government also provides financial aid, financial grant to the economically and financially weaker states. So, this Finance Commission also advises the theoretical basis on the basis of which the central government would decide the proportion of grants to be given to different states. Listen, there must be some standard process for the decision of providing grants. without having any standard process, haphazardly with a thumb rule, you cannot issue grants to different states. There must be some standard and equitable theoretical basis. So this theoretical basis is provided by this Finance Commission, and using this theoretical basis, central government decides the proportion of grants to be given to different states. Thirdly, you all know that by 72 and 73rd amendment of our constitution provided for the creation of third level of government. That is, it introduced Panchayati Raj institutions and local governments in town areas. Now, these governments also need finances to execute their work, to ensure development in their areas. Now, this Finance Commission advises our central government on the issue that how it would strengthen its consolidated fund of India, and thereafter how it would provide more and more finance to these rural and urban local governments. I have already told you that by 72nd and 73rd amendment of our constitution, it has provided for the creation of rural and urban local government. These are the third level of government, and these rural and urban local governments also need finances for the development of their own local area. Now, the Finance Commission advises central government on this issue also. It advises how central government would strengthen its consolidated fund of India, and from this how it would provide more and more financial assistance to this local government, to this local PRI and urban governments. Now, President can allot them any other task in addition to these traditional three type of tasks. Now, after that, the Finance Commission, when it finalizes its report, even before finalizing, it may submit interim report to the President. It is not necessary that Finance Commission will submit only its final report. Even prior to the submission of this final report, it may submit the interim report to the President, and at the last, when it will prepare its conclusive statement, at the last, it will submit the final report. Article 281 of the Constitution provides for the submission of interim and final reports by Finance Commission. Now, the Finance Commission submits its final report to the President of India. Now, the President of India seeks the central government's opinion on that report. Again, listen to me. In Article 281, Finance Commission submits its final report to President of India. On submission of final report, the President of India seeks opinion from the central government on this report. Now, President, along with the final report of Finance Commission, the opinion of central government also, means the President keeps the report of Finance Commission and also the opinion of central government on this report on the floor of both the houses for discussion, and it can be discussed any issue mentioned in this report, or the opinion of central government on this can be discussed in any of the houses. Now, what is the process of its working? From where it gets data? How it knows the opinion of central government and state government? How it analyzes the requirement of center and requirement of states? So for this purpose, its working process is very much simple. One of the senior officers posted in Finance Ministry of Central Government is appointed the secretary to this commission, and this officer collects all the data and information required from Finance Ministry, from Planning Commission, from Comptroller and Auditor General of India, from different ministries of the states. So, the secretary to the Finance Commission, who is an official from Finance Ministry of the central government, arranges all the required data from different organizations of the central government and provides those data to the commission for consideration. Then it seeks opinion from central cabinet and also from states. After seeking information, if needed, it arranges meeting with cabinet and also with the chief minister of different states. Now, thereafter, it also discusses the issues with different universities, different research institutions, and also with non-governmental organizations. So again, I am repeating the process of its working. First of all, to make its working easier, a senior official from Finance Ministry is appointed a secretary to the Finance Commission. This secretary is responsible for the collection of data from different organizations such as CAG, such as Planning Commission, such as Finance Ministry, or from any other organization of the central government. This secretary gathers data. This secretary gathers required and necessary data from these organizations and submit it to the Finance Commission. Then Finance Commission invites the opinion of central government and the state government. Then, if required, it have a meeting with the chief ministers of state and also try to know the opinion of central cabinet. Then, after gathering this information, having gathered this information and having known the opinion of central and state, again listen, having gathered all data and information and having known the opinion of center and state, it discusses the issues with different universities and also with different research institutions and also with some non-governmental organizations, and then it reaches to the conclusion, then it finalizes its report, and then this report is submitted to the president. President takes opinion of the central government on this report and he gets it submitted on the floor of both the houses so that the house can discuss on this report and opinion of the central government. Now, since independence till now, 15 finance commissions have been constituted. The first Finance Commission was constituted in 1951, whose chairman was K.C. Niyogi. Then, on 27th November 2017, the 15th Finance Commission was constituted. 15th Finance Commission was constituted and its chairman was N.K. Singh, and there were 3 full-time members. They were Ajay Narayan Jha, Ashok Lahiri and Anup Singh. You must know that this 15th Finance Commission was constituted in the backdrop of abolition of Planning Commission. You know that Planning Commission was also there at central level. Surely it was not a constitutional entity. Surely it was not a constitutional entity, but it was very much rival to this Finance Commission, and all the grants, developmental grants to the state were decided on the advice of Planning Commission. Again listen. Earlier, this Finance Commission, though being a constitutional body, was advising only on the issue of meeting fiscal deficit of the states, and it has no say on the issue of providing developmental grant. Though many of the commissions raised this issue that nowhere this commission has been prohibited from advising on the issue of developmental grant. But despite that, it was advising only on the issue of meeting fiscal deficit of the state. And developmental grants were provided on the advice of Planning Commission, which was even not a constitutional body. So the Planning Commission has damaged its status and power to a big extent. But in 2017, the Prime Minister Modi-led BJP government abolished the Planning Commission of India. Now, this 15th Finance Commission was constituted in the backdrop of abolition of that Finance Commission. That is why there were 3 full-time members. They were Ajay Narayan Jha, Ashok Lahiri and Anup Singh. Thus, it has already submitted its report to the central government, and this report is for financial year 2021-22 to financial year 2025-26. Means this report would be the basis for distribution of taxes for period financial year 2021-22 to 2025-26. In this way, this class is over. Having listened this class fully, if you are of the opinion that this class is useful in preparing for civil services, my request is that you should like it and you should also subscribe it, because it renders us motivation. You all know that this is not a paid class. This is a free class. This is not a paid class. This is a free class to assist you all. So if you find this class to be useful for you, I request that you should subscribe it, as it provides me a motivation and inner energy to continue this class. And if not, then you must dislike it and write the reason below in the comment box. Thank you.